We want to get up close and personal, meeting people from all walks of life, sharing stories along the way. A very human journey on Peters on the Block. Today we have a special guest, Colin Marshall, a columnist who writes about Korea for international media and the author of the book 한국 요약 금지, No Summary of Korea Allowed. Let's hear from him now.
안녕하세요 여러분. 저는 미국에서 온 한국 요약 금지 저자인 콜린 마샬이라고 합니다. 잘 부탁드립니다.
반갑습니다.
네.
Wow, that is flawless Korean, Colin. And
아이고, 감사합니다.
I hope that we can do this in English because I've not prepped for the Korean side of things today.
Oh, anything is fine by me. I'm just glad to be here.
Fabulous, Colin. Thank you so much because, you know, when I have a Korean guest who speaks Korean, I am busy scribbling away with notes. But after I saw you're an American columnist writing for a lot of English-speaking news outlets, I was like, phew, this Monday, hopefully it's just English. Yeah.
I've seen you do those Korean ones, the Korean interviews, and it's impressive the way you can live interpret and interview. That's a rare skill.
If you look at my script with all the scribbles, you wouldn't say that's impressive.
I've seen that too. When you hold your phone and then you see through the phone. Yeah,
it's an absolute mess.
It's impressive though. That's the notes too are impressive. It's a system. We all have a system.
Oh, thank you so much, Colin. But no, I am really impressed, not just with the fact that you're an author of this great book that's come out recently in Korean, but also the fact that you've been here, and I want to say this word, you know, I don't say it lightly, just 10 years.
Right, compared to you, that's not so much.
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
On and off now for maybe 16 years.
Yeah, okay.
But I first settled down here in 2008. But the reason I say just 10 years is compared to your level of Korean and the fact that you've authored a book in Korean, it would usually take people decades upon decades to do that.
I see what you mean. I started studying before, though, in the U.S.
I just learned that right now.
Right.
Yeah, for a good few years as well.
Right. A lot of them self-study, so it wasn't by no means rigorous. But I know a lot of the audience listening to ARIRANG Radio, they are Korean learners.
Sure.
They're not Korean.
Yeah.
They want to maybe come here and even learn Korean. But to give you an illustration of how different it was when I was learning Korean by myself, and everybody thought it was weird. Waste of time is what they said. I showed them all. No,
yes, you did.
I was going to say, when I was self-studying just out of old textbooks and on the internet pre-YouTube, where it just started, pre-Talk to Me in Korean, resources like that, I saw at a local city college or community college, junior college, whatever it's called in your region of the world, a Korean class popped up. And I said, oh my God, a Korean class. I'd never seen this before. I can finally learn Korean properly.
Yeah.
So I joined. I slammed that Shinchong button. I just joined on the website, on the college's site. And then it got canceled a couple weeks later because no one was interested.
There weren't enough
I might have been the only person who signed up.
Oh.
And now, as Korean learners know in the US or elsewhere, the problem is it's equally hard, but because there are too many people interested in Korean. Too many want to join, especially beginner Korean. These classes are like 50 people, and there's a wait list, and they're all because of cake culture.
Absolutely. It's flipped 180, hasn't it? Leon says, speaking of TTMIK, I saw your video there learning Korean, about learning Korean. Hyunwoo, who founded that company, a very good friend, like our kids are really good friends, and we work together at the English Broadcasting Network as well, the one that teaches English. So you've done some filming for them as well.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh,
I've been on
nice.
their show twice. They have different YouTube shows, and I've been on twice. And it was really kind of coming full circle because, again, when Talk to Me in Korean appeared, I'd been studying Korean for a few years.
Oh, nice.
And it was just the resource I needed. Like, it was perfect. Podcasts in all Korean, like conversations where I could basically, I could kind of follow. If I'm honest, I understood at first like 20%.
Sure.
But I kept listening over and over again. And then I was going on Talk to Me in Korean a decade later or less, whatever it was. But, meeting Hyunwoo and Kyung-un, whose voices I just knew so well from hearing their early episodes dozens of times. And I mean, I barely understood anything at first, but I always encourage people, even if you don't, like watch the drama that you understand 10% of, and you'll get something out of it. You can challenge yourself.
Exactly. At least one or two words or phrases, or maybe just the feel, right? So before we get too far into this, how would you introduce yourself, Colin, to any of our listeners who are coming across you for the first time? And anyone you meet for the first time, how do you describe yourself?
I'm a writer. 글 쓰는 사람이에요. Yes, that's professionally what I do. I guess broadcasting has always been a job for me as well. I was a broadcaster in the U.S.
Oh,
during
nice.
college, I was a professional radio announcer too.
Wow.
So that's always been in the mix.
Yeah.
But those are the main interests. And, I write about all kinds of things, not just Korea, but all kinds of things related to Korea, but also just in general about cities, literature, film, language, that sort of suite of subjects. I guess I'm known in the West for writing about cities in particular, but people ask why I do that. And I often say, because when you write about cities, you can write about all subjects. It's a nexus of all subjects, almost all subjects. And so it's a way to write about everything. Right?
Fantastic. Yeah. So you've written articles about Korea to the New Yorker, the Los Angeles Review of Books, other media outlets, and your own book itself. So which one maybe got the most positive response or the biggest buzz, would you say?
The pieces that I wrote in English?
Yeah.
I would say they get a variety of responses, but one of them that keeps becoming a subject of conversation is one I wrote on English name culture in Korea.
Oh, okay.
And it was inspired, as my pieces often are, inspired by just something minor, almost negligible, which was the name tags that Starbucks baristas wear here in Korea. And they have a rule where you're not supposed to use your real name, your real Korean name.
Okay.
You see sometimes, but oftentimes it's just like Mango or Sato or Green or Becky. Or, oftentimes it's just some
random
English name. I've never taught English here, but as I understand it, that is kind of a thing in English classes to take an English name, whether it's for the benefit of the student or the teacher. I'm not sure.
I don't think they're sure either in the class.
But it's a little bit like like a lot of things, when you live abroad, you step back a bit and you think, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I think people in Korea maybe see this as natural or the way it always. It's the way it always was.
Sure.
But wait, why the English name culture? What is an English name? Because is it a name from England? Not necessarily. How many Nigels do you see?
Not many.
Is it a English is a language? It's not a culture in that sense.
Yeah.
So what is an English name exactly? So when you really start thinking about it, you start wondering, like, what is going on here? It stops making sense. And so that keeps coming up, like the key to some aspects of modern Korean culture is thinking about, like, why would there be English? Why would the concept of English names be so widely accepted? And when it is weird when you think about it, right? It's like and so oftentimes, as I point out, and I've talked about this in my Korean lectures, like, it's the English name people pick in Korea are often generationally not quite right. And I'll compare it when I'm talking to Koreans. I'll be like, imagine a 20-year-old white girl who calls herself Mija.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Old-fashioned name,
How that wouldn't make sense, would it? Like, that would be weird, wouldn't it? But they never think about it the other way around. Like a 25-year-old Korean Eunice is not. I mean, there's a story here, maybe. What's going on? That gets some attention.
Wow, so you did quite a deep dive, I assume, on
but it starts
an
small.
issue. Okay.
It's like, that's something that I'm just curious about. Or I'll see an old Korean car.
Yeah.
Like, you never see cars from the 80s on the street here?
No.
In the US, the UK, you probably do.
Yeah,
but here, the old cars are.
As well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Old cars are rare. So it's, why is that? What's the difference between cars now in Korea, cars then, and what does it say about Korea?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. And I know we have a mutual friend, because you mentioned it earlier, David Tizard, used to do a corner here, which kind of did this. We'd take a small issue and then go really deep into it. And it was one of the most informative corners. So I'm sure that's why your articles have gained a lot of traction and why your book must be so interesting. But, okay, let's go back to the beginning. And the real beginning isn't when you came to Korea then. Why 7 years before coming to Korea did you start learning Korean?
This is something I've answered many times in Korean, but not never, but seldom in English. So let's see if I can do it. All right. 도전합시다.
Yes.
It's because I went to college in California, at the University of California, Santa Barbara, which is a university. There are Koreans there.
Okay.
I wouldn't say lots, but there were enough. I would sometimes hear Korean around me and think like, why can't I understand it? I've been studying for 6 months. Why can't I understand what the Koreans are saying? And I graduated, but I stuck around Santa Barbara for a while. Okay. And the library there at the university had a good media library. Like, at those days, DVDs were the big thing. Yeah. And so I saw, especially in Asian film, all kinds of Chinese, Japanese, and even Korean movies. But at the time I looked at them, didn't know they were Korean. I was like, what country could this be from? Sure. I had my guesses. Yeah. And like a lot of Americans even then were aware for some reason that Hangul, the Korean alphabet, was an alphabet. That it was not logographic or pictographic characters like you would see used like Hanja. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if many did, but it was in the air. It was like a factoid people knew. And so I thought, well, I've always been interested in Asia.
Yeah.
So, and I've been to some Korean restaurants. I felt like the Korean 분위기, the Korean atmosphere is different. It's not Japan. It's not China. It's not these cultures we knew in America. There's something different.
Yeah.
So I was curious already. When I found Korean films, this archive in the college library, I just started checking them out, watching them.
Okay.
And I thought, these movies are also not like the movies I know, even from other Asian countries.
Oh, wow.
They're different. They felt different on some level. So I said, I'll study Korean a little bit. I'll just learn this alphabet, and that'll sate my curiosity. I'll learn Hangul, and then I'll be done. So I was doing this radio announcer job, and between when you're speaking, you sometimes don't have a lot to do.
Sure.
So I was studying on the internet these very simple websites that were about learning Hangul.
Yeah.
And so I taught myself that, and then I just kept going. And I got old textbooks to learn grammar, and these sort of clunky old storybooks you could find in those days. And just the curiosity was such that I didn't stop. And it was my own thing. I didn't know any Koreans.
Sure.
I didn't know any friends who cared about Korea. There was no awareness of Korea around me. Santa Barbara didn't have any Korean restaurants at that time. This is the mid-2000s.
Just internal motivation to learn.
And in a way, it made it easier to do because there was no pressure.
Yeah.
Learning. I remember in 2000, I was in high school. I took a programming class, which is something that many Koreans will be familiar with, the concept of doing a coding class in the summertime. Day one, the professor says, okay, you guys, this is a 2-week class. Coding is hard.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to learn computer programming in 2 weeks any more than I would expect you to learn Korean in 2 weeks. And I was like, good, but who would want to learn Korean? Fast forward 25 years.
Wow.
But he was not Korean American. This was just a black guy.
Yeah.
He was into computers. He was a nerd. But Korean was an example of like, this is an obscure, hard thing you would never be expected to learn quickly.
Wow.
And sure enough, I'm still learning Korean.
Yeah.
I will never not be learning Korean.
Of
and this
course.
is, you hear a lot of foreigners here, not a lot. Many foreigners don't bother to learn Korean still, unfortunately. But the ones who do, there can be a lot of bragging that goes on some level.
Yeah.
And like, I've studied Korean 5 years. No, I've studied it 6 years. I've studied it 10 years. Well, it takes a lifetime.
Yeah.
You'll never not be learning.
Sure.
You'll die, like your dying day, you'll still be learning some usage that you never were quite sure about up till that point, right?
Yeah.
I'll still be trying to master like Goldenyo at that point.
I think even if you've learned it 50 years, you're still never going to be a native speaker. And even native speakers, this is what I say when I teach English as well. I don't know all the English out there, even as a native speaker. I'll be learning my native tongue until the day I die, if I choose to.
I'm still learning it too, English.
Yeah, absolutely. Loads of questions coming in from our listeners. We'll get to more in part 2, but one from Mata, just to clear up, I think a bit of confusion here, saying, so wait, now most Koreans are taking on English names? I like Korean names. It sounds so professional. So we're not talking about instead of Korean names. Right. This is on top of your Korean name.
That's a good question,
right?
yeah. That's like, they're nicknames, because this is one thing I wrote about in the piece, is it's a whole byolmyong 문화, like the culture of nicknames.
Yeah.
People use nicknames all the time. You go to meetings like a book club in Korea, and people will go around and give their byolmyong, their nickname, and I'll be like, I've never had a nickname in my life. I don't know how it is in England, but
we get teased. Those are not nicknames by choice.
I heard your nickname one time on another interview. That's right. We didn't have that in the US, so I never had a nickname, so I don't feel comfortable using, even on the internet, I never had a sort of handle. It's always my real name. But I sort of grew up with it. And so, it's their nicknames, and people they use nicknames very easily in Korea, I suspect, because of the culture of titles. Like you call your coworkers here, you call them by their titles, right? You don't call them by their unthinkable first name, especially if they're older.
Absolutely.
But so people are used to being called things other than their name. And like you talk to foreigners, sometimes they'll say like, what do I call people in Korean? And I often say, first, not their name.
Just not
don't use
their
their
name.
Anything other than their name. Or like sonsaengnim, which is often the word used for teacher. It just means you were born before. Even if they're not older than you, you're safe with that. Or just, use their full name and maybe add the nim on there, but just don't call them by their first name. But in given names, like actual Korean names, people are usually not getting named an English name by their parents. And in fact, these days, they're not even getting named Chinese character-derived names.
No, that's dying
pure
out
Korean
bit,
names.
right?
Like you don't see Mija, as I mentioned, anymore. Like it's been a while for Mija, but you see Sun Urimar, Sun Hangukmal. Like you see pure Korean names. And I like them, just aesthetically.
Me too.
But it's a yuheng, a trend right now.
Yeah, and I guess, this is interesting in Korea. We want to get rid of, outwardly for sure and inwardly as well, all the Japanese influence from before. And then I found it it's interesting that we've still got a lot of Hanja meanings behind a lot of words, but we've got Sunurima, the pure Korean. So wouldn't it make sense if we're going in that direction to not have Hanja behind our names? But I also like meanings behind the names as well.
I do too, and I often emphasize, people ask, how do you recommend I learn Korean? Learn Hanja, learn the Chinese characters, because even if they're not in text, and that's, I think, is kind of regrettable. I do advocate publicly for at least restoring some Hanja to public life. Because if you see the Hanja, you get a sense of what words are related. But if you don't learn Hanja, and students still do to a degree in Korea, you're blind to the relationships between the words.
Sure.
And so you're kneecapping yourself in a big way if you never study Hanja and you're trying to learn Korean. People do it, but you're just, why disarm yourself to that degree, right?
It is such an advantage. And I mean, you will recognize that some syllables just sound the same, but then if you know the Hanja behind it, then you make those links for sure. Let's get to a song break, Colin. And we always ask our guests to request a song. So I'm really curious what you've requested and why.
Yes. Shall I announce it?
Yes, please.
It is Seoul, Seoul, Seoul by Cho Yong-pil, the legendary Cho Yong-pil.
Fantastic. Legendary singer. And I'm guessing because that's a city you've written about a lot as well.
It is, but this is also my 18번. Oh,
really?
So, yes.
Should we hear your version instead of Cho Yong-pil's?
Well, I mean, let's give him a chance. I know mine might be even better.
I think you'd get Pekjong, right? 100 points in the norebang.
You'll at least get 80.
At least, all right. Did you go to the norebang, though, to help with your Korean? Was that like a conscious thing, or have you just got caught up in it? And do you actually go often, I wonder?
Not these days. It would be a good idea to work on your Korean in a norebang. It won't really teach you Korean, but I do notice, and this will be applicable to many of the listeners, I suspect, is if you get into a language, not just Korean, but any language through music, and you sing the music, your pronunciation becomes pretty good.
Yeah,
your grammar could be terrible. So you got to work on that. Don't neglect the grammar. But you see Koreans who sing in English and they sound like native speakers.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they can't speak English.
No,
but
that's true.
If you want to nail the pronunciation, music is a pretty good way of doing it. And it helps your ear to just pick out which word is which is, for me, it was a huge problem. For, I don't know, 5 years. I would make the trek to Los Angeles or wherever to go to a Korean restaurant. And then I could order in Korean. And then what the Azumone would say back to me would just like, and so I would say, and I'd go along with it. They'd always give me something good, but I would barely ever understand what was being said to me. I could speak, and this would be familiar to many Korean learners. You can't 알아들어. You can't pick out, you can't not just understand, but pick out what's being said to you.
Yeah, the words.
I have strategies about that I've developed, but it was a struggle early on, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm guessing, especially if you did it on your own in the early days learning, right? And there wasn't too much listening exposure. Like that input is really, really important. And that's why I think it was a great tip you're saying about watching the dramas and the movies, even if you've got subtitles on, as long as you're getting exposed to a lot of the sounds.
People underestimate how much they need. And they say like, but I can't understand it. Yeah, I know. You can't now. But like when you were a baby growing up, I think you heard both languages yourself. And so it worked the same for you for both, right? There was a time you understood neither English nor Korean, and then a little, and then more, and it just happened that way. You didn't have to work through another language. That's another thing. Like Koreans often have this problem. Every linguistic thing they do, they're translating it in their head. And so Americans have the same problem, but Koreans, because they study more foreign languages, they tend to default to translating in the head, and that's what gets in the way. Yeah,
it really is a bit tricky at the start, a bigger barrier, but if you just go for that language and not trying to translate it into your native tongue long term, that's the winning strategy, I think, as well. Loads of questions from our listeners. Let's get on to Leon. Says, what aspects of Korean society do you think Western audiences still misunderstand? So this is, I wonder, linked to your book title, perhaps, about 한국 요약 금지, like literally no summarizing career or summarize a career banned. Do you feel, I get the feel from the title that a lot of maybe outlets from the West are just going for something really short and sweet about Korea, not going on a deep dive.
I have a lot of I have had a lot of journalist friends in Korea, and I'm always sort of going on about this. But I mean, the title of the book, those who might be studying Korean, like 한국 요약 금지, this language.
You've got it, by the way. Let's show it off, because it looks really good.
I like the design. I like how it came out. Yes. You see this type of language, like 흡연 금지, no smoking, 주차 금지, no parking, on signs in public. And so 한국 요약 금지, yes. No summarizing Korea. And so I write in the book, Western media coverage of Korea, there's more of it than ever, but a lot of it is like, oh, Korea's the country of BTS, the country of suicide, the country of Samsung, the country of being next to North North Korea. It's always defined by these, say, the country of the Sunung, whenever the Sunung comes around in November.
Just like one aspect
It's just
of it,
one.
right?
It's always just the one thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure every country gets the same treatment, but Korea is so in vogue right now that it's easier than ever to pitch coverage of Korea to a Western editor.
Yeah.
But they have certain ideas about how Korea is, and oftentimes editors with no experience of Korea, no special knowledge of it, they'll have things they expect you to say. Like, oh, this is Korea. Like, this is what Korea is to Westerners. And so I'm writing about the Korea I experience. It's through my experience, what journalists are not supposed to do. Talk about how they see things. And so that, I think, if Koreans have found it fun to read my book, part of it is just like, oh, I'm seeing Korea through the eyes of a foreigner. That's something I've never done before and never even considered doing before. But I'm not saying, again, this book is not saying Korea is good. It's not saying Korea is bad. I do complain about what I don't like about Korea on page 1, paragraph 1.
Okay.
But Koreans still often see it as being very positive. Like I'm celebrating Korea, which in some sense I probably am. But I don't think I'm hesitant to criticize, even on a pretty deep level, certain parts of the society.
Of course.
So it's not gukbong.
No.
It's but it kind of gets. I mean, people have received it as in praise or in celebration, or the cover itself. I mean, it doesn't look like a critical book.
No, it's got Gwanghwamun on there. It's got the Ensol Tower and
it's all
live
there.
band music.
It's got a generic Westerner with a magnifying glass.
I love it. I love the premise of the book. And to be honest, if you're a foreigner in Korea and you've been here a long time, I'm guessing, you're not forced to stay here. So if you really hated it, you'd be back in your home country or somewhere else.
This is the thing. When I first came to Korea, before I even moved here, I would meet foreigners who'd been here a long time. And I talked to them about Korea, and they'd be sort of positive for a while. Then they would get to be the nighttime, and they'd have a few drinks, and it's just like the complaints would come out. And it's just the floodgates opened of how much they didn't like being in Korea. And I think, why are you here? You can go home. I didn't say it, but a lot of them maybe felt like they didn't go home. Part of it was, if you're an English teacher, you can get stuck at a certain point. You can't get out of it. That was a word of warning I heard, and one reason I never taught was because, like, you start it, you might get to be not even my age, but like 28, and you get stuck in that. It's not a rut, but it's just you can't break out. The company pays for your housing and they handle everything for you. And if you don't speak Korean, you can't escape. And unless you go back to where you came from, in which case you might be starting over. So you've really got to make your own life in Korea in your own way. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that is really good advice. No matter where you go, learn the language, learn the culture, and get settled.
You'd think you wouldn't have to say that, but
no, it doesn't come as a given to many people. And it's not just in Korea. I know some friends who were out in the Middle East, like in Dubai and the UAE, and there's this expat community, and get caught in there, and you're basically living in England, just in the desert, and it was really
England
interesting.
25 years ago, though, right? I mean, it's they bring their the time of their youth with them.
And it's that same thing, going out drinking on a Friday night, etc., etc. CT, one of our Korean listeners who's down in Australia, living there now, has an Aussie passport, asking about getting his Korean passport back earlier. Says, our family, including our kids, we only use our Korean names as our English names. We do not see the need to have like an AKA English name. And yet I've always been an advocate for that. But I do also grant that there are some Korean names that are very difficult to pronounce in English. So if you're living in England, for example, when my wife was studying there, her name is Seon, right? So my dad, for the life of him, could never pronounce her name correctly. It was like Seon, Sion, Suyun.
Oh,
so he just reverted to SY. And my wife was like, that's okay. Because she hated English names as well, because it just felt awkward to her. She was like, I'm not a Julie. I'm not a Catherine.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I do encourage that. And then that helps kind of make a conversation start. Like, this is a Korean name, this is how it's pronounced, and you can talk about that as well. And then if the Korean has problems pronouncing an English name, I don't know, Catherine or something like that, then you can talk about that as well.
You can talk about that. Sometimes Koreans use translations of their names. Have you seen that? Where I was talking to the poet, getting interviewed by the poet Oh Eun, and his given name is Eun, is the rare one-syllable given name. And he's like, I went to the U.S. on a tour, and I said, I introduced myself as Silver. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, it starts the conversation, as you say. I mean, they'll know, on some level, they'll know your name is not Silver, but it is on some level Silver. Like, it's a translation. So it's better than calling himself like, hey, I'm Dave. You know what I mean? There's no story there.
Yeah, you need some kind of link at least, I feel. Matahari from Trinidad saying, what is one thing in Korea that you can't get accustomed to or adapt to, no matter how long you've been? So you've been living here now a decade?
Yeah. I've been living here a decade. I first came in 2014. And I don't have any major complaints with Korea, it's true. But you could say almost the society is an Ansong Machum for me. It's Ansong used to make the city of Ansong made this like dinnerware or bowls or spoons that were custom made. So Ansong Machum, like custom made exactly to the individual buying them. But I mean, to name something trivial, like why do Koreans blast their fluorescent lights at home? Like, why do they turn the fluorescent lights on all the time? It's so bright. It's your eyes hurt. Why? Everyone does it. Why the fluorescent lights? Like,
when I first came, I was so unbelievably shocked that there was a different colour of light. Because in the UK, everyone has the dim kind of... Nowadays, it's changing because LEDs and environmentally friendliness, blah, blah, blah. But when I was young, it was all that kind of orange glow to things. And, you know, it would give that vibe of you're getting ready to settle down and go to sleep kind of thing. And then in Korea, it was like, no, everyone's awake all the time kind of vibe. It's like it's daytime, Yeah, and they are really bright. And now our apartment has way too many for some reason inside. But I feel that that's maybe linked to the culture of, Koreans being active until later, kids studying until later. It kind of keeps them awake even at 10:30 p.m. when it's a school night.
Room. Yes.
But that is an interesting cultural difference. So tell us more about the book then. How has this been received? Because there can't be too many books written all in Korean by foreigners, full stop, let alone someone who's doing columns, for publications abroad.
Yeah, this is a book is distinctive in the sense that it has both essays that I wrote before in English that were translated that the publisher liked, but also new essays I wrote in Korean with a Korean audience in mind.
Wow.
And that was the big reason I wanted to write new essays in Korean, so I could think, oh, I'm writing for Koreans. Because the old essays were not written for Koreans, and they're just translated. Okay, whatever. There are translated books, that's fine. Some foreigners have written books all in Korean. There's a guy, Robert Fauser, a professor who lives in the U.S. now, in fact, but he writes about language and cities and kind of things like I do. But he's also writing all in Korean. So he's a real sonbae for me. I look up to his example. But this book came about because a publisher here in Korea had read a piece I'd written on the 10th anniversary of Psy's Gangnam Style. And he thought, he was posting about it on Twitter. He's like, oh, this guy he sees things about Gangnam Style that are funny to Koreans that most Westerners kind of just let pass, that they don't catch. And so he contacted me, this editor, and he said, let's do a book. And so it was because of Gangnam Style in a way, because of Psy. The 10th anniversary came, and I just thought, when you're writing about culture, the 10th anniversary of something is always an excuse to write a piece. And so Gangnam Style is a satire. It's making fun of things that are very specific. When that came out, a lot of foreigners, I was in the US at the time, they were like, wow, this crazy music video with all these colors and these dancing. What's that kid? How's that kid dancing? What's going on the bus? Why is there a disco ball in the bus? And what's blowing up? And then the bathroom stall? It was just insanity. But you watch it when you live in Korea, you think, oh, I know exactly what he's making fun of every single frame of the way. And what about Korean culture? He's making a pretty severe indictment of certain aspects of Korean culture, of modern Korea. And that's what I was trying to explain. And so that got the attention of the publisher. Did that get
the attention of because that was in English, I guess, it was
in the New
Yorker,
audience,
right? So did they pick up on that? Because I'm guessing most Americans who've not been to Korea, they would have not known any of those little nuances.
Right. Why they don't even know what Gangnam is. I remember Psy himself called it the Beverly Hills of Korea, which is inexact. I mean, it's much bigger, first of all. But even Koreans themselves disagree on what Gangnam is and where its boundaries are. It's not Gangnam-gu. It could be part of that or part of that. Or I live south of the river, which is what Gangnam means, but nobody would call my neighborhood Gangnam. It's too far. I mean, Gangso, which is west of the river, of course, but it's still south of it. The relationship geographically holds. But I think, Gangnam Style was just seen as this bizarre phenomenon, like, oh, there's weird Asia firing off again. And I think, I don't know to what extent that was consciously done. There might have been an impulse to let's just see how wild we can get and see who bites the lure. But I think the K-pop establishment, if you like, was surprised that was the song that took off. Like all the money, all the effort we've put into forming these beautiful boy bands and girl groups. And now this jokester, Psy, who we thought was washed up, he's the one hitting it big in the Philippines first. So many listeners may be in the Philippines. Like that's why. It hit big in the Philippines. And from the Philippines, it went outward. Maybe because of the English in the Philippines, I'm not sure. But the vector was the Philippines.
Oh, really?
That's how it went there for, you can prove this with internet data. And then, it was big here, as you know, but then it really spread from Southeast Asia to the rest of the world. And eventually, Korean culture gets to the US, but that's always the latest. And it still has, there's
Yeah.
It still hasn't penetrated far, K-pop in the US, but it's there.
That has really, opened my eyes up to its root. I remember a few Western celebrities, tweeting out about it. I think Justin Bieber and maybe Robbie Williams from the UK, but they must have got it after it had gone through, right? The Philippines or something like that.
Through Asia first. Again, Korean culture does that. The Hallyu is first through Asia, and then everywhere else.
Yeah, and that's a formula that seems to be working rather well at the minute. So with this book that's all in Hangul, for some of our listeners who, most of them are learning Korean, but I don't think reading this would be easy for them. To get your English articles and stuff like that, where can they find them then?
I have a website, colinmarshall.org, and there's a page, essays, that you can just scroll down and see all of them organized there, whether it's been for The Guardian or The New Yorker or the Los Angeles Review of Books or wherever, they're all there. And so you can just see them at a glance.
Nice.
That's what the publisher used to sort of pick and choose what to translate as well. So colinmarshall.org, it's there, certainly.
Fantastic. All right, check that website out, guys. And we're back for our third and final part of Peter's on the Block with Colin Marshall, author and columnist, and really interesting interview subject, Colin. I think we'd have to get you back about 10 times to delve deep enough into all of your knowledge. The reason you chose Seoul and then we chose Seoul City, you've also wrote an article about 43 reasons to love Seoul. That's a rather interesting number. 43. Was it just you read out after 43, or there was something in mind with that?
It originated with a Twitter thread. I was riding the bus in Seoul and getting ready to tap my card to go out, and I was thinking, I should list just I didn't call it that. The name is a retranslation of the translated title of the new title the publisher gave it in Korean. So I originally said something like reasons Seoul has given me to have reservations about moving to any other city, something like that. It wasn't quite so cut and dry. But I just started listing off certain conveniences, like your card. I just used my debit card from the bank, and it works all over the country in every bus and train. Somehow not in Chuncheon. I don't know why, but everywhere else it's fine.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or things like you can run unmanned stores here, and there's not much of a problem. They can do business, and every American who visits always thinks there must be a security guard somewhere in here. This can't be unmanned. The public safety. A lot of it has to do with public safety in Korea. Like you go to a coffee shop, you can leave your laptop and your phone and your wallet on the table, and you get up, smoke for 2 hours or whatever, and you come back and everything's going to be there. You know it's going to be there.
It's unbelievable.
And by no means, people argue about this. They say, is Korea a low trust or high trust society? People see that, you leave your laptop and it's fine phenomenon. They think, it must be high trust. Others say, no, it's low trust because look at the amount of financial crime, the swindling that goes on. And it's always people you know. It's always people you don't have to be afraid, people often say here, of strangers in Korea. It's people you know. So is it high trust? Is it low trust? Maybe that framing doesn't suit. Maybe it's too simple. Maybe it's a summarization that doesn't suit Korea. But I kept adding tweets, and it went viral, by my standards, which is pretty modest. And so I got a lot of feedback, and, people were mostly positive. Some said, well, what about this problem and that problem? Fair enough. But it got up to 43, and I wrote an essay about it.
Nice.
And some of it was about misinterpretation. I wasn't saying everything in Seoul is good and nothing is bad. I was saying, here are the reasons why I have trouble even conceiving of living in another city at this point. Least of all in the West, where you come into, in London, think of how many things you wouldn't. Think of how there are things London has that Seoul doesn't. But there are lots of bad things London has that Seoul doesn't have as well. And so I got 43 tweets, but then I kept going, and then I think there are 60 now.
Oh, wow.
I could keep adding if I wanted to, but sometimes it goes years between when I don't put anything else there. But it's people complain about Seoul. Partially because I think they feel forced to be here. There's no other city. In many senses, it's true. You laugh at that, but I think of the U.S. and almost everybody I know lives in either New York, Los Angeles, or someplace weird. I would say this is a country of 300 million or more than that. But there's some resentment of Seoul, and it doesn't seem to be a beautiful city. Although I don't know. I was in Paris for a month a couple of years ago. Paris is known as a beautiful city. I like it, but what I like about Paris is not because it looks good. There are other advantages. I don't need a city to be like a painting. And Paris has some problems as a result of never wanting to change its built environment in the central city. It's why it's so expensive, for one. So I don't think a city needs to be beautiful in the sort of Santorini way, to use a popular Korean reference.
Check out Colin Marshall then on Twitter as well, or X, or
whatever you call
whichever
it.
platform.
Whatever it is
call
next. It might change before the end of this broadcast.
Let's get on to our quiz, Colin. And one thing to make clear, it's optional because our writer does write questions tailored to the guest. So it's not really like super easy sometimes.
Right.
And there have been instances of people getting it incorrect. But if you do get it correct, you can pick from our massive box of prizes,
Excellent.
which consists of some amazing stuff worth up to about 150,000 won, and then things that are free of charge, like me mentioning your name once on the show next week or something like that.
Okay.
Would you like to take on the
Yes, I
challenge
would,
of the
of course.
quiz? Okay, Colin. So you get a ding dong ding for that. You might not get another one if you get this wrong, though. Oof. All right, so here we go. Guess the name of a Korean food and a traditional liquor. You got to get both correct to win. Renowned filmmaker Tim Burton once visited Korea, and he made headlines when he enjoyed this food paired with this traditional liquor at Gwangjang Market in Seoul. I wonder if from just that, do you know the
I might
answer?
have it. Let's see.
Oh, really? Okay.
I never heard of this incident. I didn't know he came here.
Okay.
I used to be a big Tim Burton fan
Me
growing
too,
up.
yeah. The
Ed
early
Wood was
days.
a favorite movie.
Yeah, all those Johnny Depp films that we can't like anymore. The food is a type of savoury pancake made from ground mung beans, and it has a crispy exterior and a rich nutty flavour inside. It's one of the most famous dishes at Gwangjang Market. And the liquor is a traditional Korean rice-based alcohol known for its smooth texture and subtly sweet taste.
I believe I might have tried this.
Oh, nice.
This very combination.
Yeah, the pairing is considered the classic combination at the market. So what is the name of the food and the drink, Colin?
The food is bindae-tteok and the drink is makgeolli.
Well done, Colin. I think I would have tripped over on the food and maybe said some kind of chon instead of bindae-tteok. I mean, there are arguments about how different bindae-tteok is to like chon, but it's the mung bean, right?
It's texture. It's all the texture, right?
Yeah.
Tonight I'm going for jon and makgeolli with a friend.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's not bindae-tteok, but
No.
I have a favorite place in Insadong that has. For some reason they have nokdujon. So
That's also, I think, mung bean, right? So that's where it gets confusing.
We could do another hour
right?
on the difference between these two. But yeah, once you said Gwangjang
Fantastic.
Market,
Really?
that was it. I think
Well done. Colin.
Okay.
You
Thank
deserve
you.
your
Thank
prize.
you.
So pick out a ball in
I'm
here.
going to do it without
Blind.
seeing. Yes.
No colour bias there. Picked out a green one, Colin has, and then if you'd read what's on there,
Will do.
and then usually our producer gives the prize straight away. She's out there with her box of tricks.
피토와의 셀카 타임. 원하시는 만큼 찍어드립니다. Well, we get a 셀카. I can send it to David Tizard.
Yes, indeed, with a message for him, perhaps. And I didn't know that said that on there. You can do as many as you want. What? So I'd have to stay here forever if someone wanted. Not that anyone would. Infinite selfies.
Get that one of these times.
Maybe, Colin. It's been a pleasure. Would you like to say a final greeting to our listeners and where they can find you best if they want to get in touch?
Oh, yes. Pleasure's all mine. If you just go to colinmarshall.org, that's not .com, but .org. Couldn't get the .com. It was a site about a guy's cats, so I couldn't get it from him.
Interesting.
Colinmarshall.org, that's where I post my writing. And there's Twitter, Colin Marshall, just my name. That's the only SNS or social media platform I have.
Nice.
So just two. Colinmarshall.org, Colin Marshall on Twitter.
Fantastic. And we had a good shout earlier from one of our listeners. I think it was Leon saying, can't we have Colin as a weekly guest on a Thursday?
Specifically.
We have started a new... There is a reason. It's not that your face looks like good for a Thursday. We've got this new rotating corner on a Thursday where each week is a different speciality guest. If Colin is not so busy in the future, we would love to have that on board, but we'll start negotiations after the show, maybe. Colin, thank you so much for coming in. Good luck with the book continuing on. It's still available at all good book outlets in Korea.
Indeed.
And then any English content you can find on the website. And you're coming up with an English book in the future.
I wrote a book on Korean neutro, which the culture critic Kim Hon-sik on this show a few weeks ago was discussing. It's where Korean young people have rediscovered old Korean things, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. 2000s is old now.
Yeah.
By the way, just to let you know, we're the same age.
Oh, dear.
2000s things are old. But because these Koreans are young and did not experience them the first time, they don't have associations with poverty and with harder times. So they're new to them.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's the same with foreigners like me. It's new to us. Like old Korean things, they're not chonsoro to us. They're mocho. So in a way, like a 40-year-old foreigner and a 20-year-old Korean can both enjoy neutro things, like old Korea, because it's new to us. And so Korean Neutro is the tentative title. But it'll come out in English.
All right, we're looking forward to that as well. Colin, good luck in the future, and hopefully see you again on the show.
Yes.
We'll leave it there for today. We'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Tuesdays is now our Dish of the Day segment with Chef Ryan Phillips. Last song today is from Listen, Love Attack. It's been your Daily Dose of Korea. #DailyK out.